My name is Kimberly Lazarin and I was a patient of the Gait Lab. I have cerebral palsy spastic diaplegia. I was 5 when they started. It was hard. I couldn't do things that other kids did. You know, I was in a wheelchair for a while. I couldn't go roller skating. I couldn't do the things that they were doing.
I took over the CP service in 1978, and it soon became apparent that we had angry therapists, we had angry parents, and that we were making a lot of kids worse. If you took 2 kids that looked the same, examined the same, did the same surgery, we were often getting different outcomes. We needed to look at what treatments were available, and I went out to the West Coast and looked at gait labs. Those were pretty primitive labs, but I realized that they were able to at least see what was going on with the child. I always like to say that doctors can ask the questions, but they don't know how to answer them. Engineers can answer them, but they don't know the proper questions. So, I mean, when we work together, I think there's been tremendous advances.
Before gait analysis, the standard of care was single surgeries, single sitting. Then maybe 6 months, a year later, you decided, well, you know, I think I probably should have released that. So the kids got into what we call the birthday syndrome, that every year they could count on, like their birthday, having a hospitalization and a surgery, and that really doesn't happen anymore.
Our lab started out with seeing primarily children with cerebral palsy. So our research started out with that group. The first step was to figure out how do kids with CP walk? What don't we understand when we watch them walk?
You would come in, they would put all the electrodes on. It took a very long time, but they were always helpful. They always had little things to cheer you up, blow bubbles for you, all that kind of stuff. And then you would walk back and forth for what seemed like forever.
We started to do research on understanding the characteristics of gait in children with cerebral palsy. And as more surgeries were done and the standard of care was applied, pre and post, we started to, with a research model, examine the treatment outcomes. And with that, the surgical approach to CP changed.
Now the standard of care is single sitting, multi-level surgery, guided by a tool like gait analysis, studied by a tool like gait analysis, and that's a tremendous change for the parents, for the kids.
I am tremendously honored that I was chosen to be the first person to walk in the Gait Lab. Because of what they learned from me and from everyone else, other children are able to have a better life with less pain, less surgeries, no more serial casting, no more of the things originally that they didn't know they didn't have to do.
The research mission, our most important goal, is to improve care for kids. So if we can improve care, we can allow them to function better in their activities of daily living throughout their lives.
One of the reasons I joined Connecticut Children's Medical Center is specifically because of the capability and reputation of the Center for Motion Analysis. I take care of children with cerebral palsy, spina bifida, and various muscle disease disorders, and having the Gait Lab at my disposal has resulted in better outcomes for my patients. It's resulted in me becoming a better physician. I think it allows me to do better work. It also allows me to teach the residents better.
The data here that we can collect and provide for physicians is quite unique, and it's an invaluable service that we can provide.
I'm taking advantage of the phenomenal database that we've collected over the past 30 years. For example, we want to better understand the impact of a particular surgical procedure for a child with cerebral palsy. We can go into our database and look up maybe 150, 200 children that have had a particular set of procedures that meet a certain set of criteria, and then look at the outcomes. So that systematic approach to the treatment allows us this research model that is really unique.
So we're really coming up with a hypothesis on the initial evaluation, and then we've done the surgery, and then we're testing the hypothesis. So we look a year later and said, you know, that was a good plan, or that was really not a good plan, and how could we make it better? And that's the beauty of it, is really in the evaluation of the patient after you've delivered what you thought was good standard of care surgery.
The Department of Orthopedics was very fortunate to be named as a top program by U.S. News & World Report in their recent rating. The Center for Motion Analysis is a vital reason why we achieved this distinction and honor.
globally where we've come with gait analysis is now it's a fairly standardized tool. You know, there were a few labs at the beginning in the United States, the United Kingdom, and now there are hundreds and hundreds of labs throughout the world. And I think we are all proud of the fact that many of those labs are actually trained by this lab.
Education is really important, and one of the primary issues is this kind of education of gait analysis, biomechanics, and function is not really part of the standard of education in most orthopedic programs.
If you have 100 labs around the world collecting the same kind of information, that's where you can get the data, which is, I think, what we're most proud of.
Our research now isn't only focused on pathological gait, though. With our move to our new facility here in 2007, we've really expanded to a completely different direction and adding sports medicine.
I noticed more and more that young kids were having overuse injuries, were having problems, especially with their shoulder and their elbow. I came to them and asked the question. I said, is there a way that we could look into overhead motion, throwing a baseball? We understand what throwing a baseball does to a young person's shoulder and elbow, and now we can actually answer questions. We can look into the problems that exist out there. We're in the midst now of a 3-year project with Major League Baseball to try to help understand better what leads to a higher injury rate in those high elite level athletes, and then hopefully with some of the lower adolescent pitchers.
We're not stopping there. That's our first effort. We hope to take our research in the direction of running injuries, anterior cruciate ligament injuries in females, which are much greater than in the male population. So we have a lot of work to do, and we have a phenomenal facility that's going to allow us to do that.
The potential that exists by the coexistence of elite sports medicine and the Center for Motion Analysis in the same building is limitless. There's no question that we could move into almost any realm of helping prevent injuries in young adolescents that we choose to.
This can expand even more as far as rehabilitation and getting kids back on the field quicker, as we can understand when they're ready to go back on the field through testing in the lab here.
The future for us is we need to continue along the path of pathological gait and pathological movement, because our expertise is there. Our ability to interpret that data is really unique. We have very comprehensive, complicated technology that help us do motion analysis, and we couldn't do it without the technology. And the technology gets old and becomes obsolete. And unfortunately, when it becomes obsolete, we need to replace it. If we don't have donors, we can't make that happen.
Donor support is vital to the success of the Center for Motion Analysis. In fact, it was first built based on donations.
It's the best place you can donate your money because they make miracles happen every day. They really do. How are you?
How are you doing?
I think the best part of my job is the people that I work with here in the lab. They are so dedicated to the patients and the families that they serve. I think they're also very dedicated to discovery.
The people that are involved in kinesiology or joint motion across the nation recognize the Center for Motion Analysis as one of the elite group of labs. But now it's also being recognized by other organizations, by sports societies like Major League Baseball.
Consider this the best lab in the country. If you're a patient in Connecticut who has a disability that we can help with, you know you're going to get the best analysis that's possible around the world.
I'm very proud of the accomplishments of our Center for Motion Analysis. They've benefited children, they've benefited families, they've benefited physicians, they've benefited the entire system.
I am thankful to Harry Gray, I'm thankful to Dr. James Gage, I am thankful to Center for Motion Analysis. I'm thankful for the donors that have given generously to support this type of technology. Looking forward to a life in a wheelchair, or wow, with this technology and with these physicians and with these amazing therapists, this is where I am. I have a life just like anyone else does.